Hello Internet, I am the hero of Julios once again with another episode of the Saltmarsh vlog. These are going to start becoming a little more staggered throughout my other D&D ideas for Friday videos. In fact, I'm actually going to be leaving for my Saltmarsh campaign today as recording this video. So this is actually last week's vlog of last week's session. So yeah, it's going to start piling up. That way I just kind of have something to upload in the event that I forget or something I need to make, or if I don't have an idea that week. But anyways, again, these are more for me than anyone, just to look back on the campaign as it went. And today we're going to be talking about mercy and how much of it you should be giving as a dungeon master. So the session starts off with the players heading back out to sea. They told Gellin Primewater what was up with the Sahagin out in the ocean, and he told them, hey, you know, if you guys go back out there, I'll give you these caps, and they took them up on that, and they got lost, but this session, they were okay with me saying, hey guys, let's just fast forward to the part where you guys get to the Sahagin so that we don't meet another dragon, and they were like, okay, that's fine. So we get to the water, and unfortunately, in that session, both the cleric and the bard were unable to play today. So it was the four non-healing members of the party going at it against the Sahagin Baron and several Sahagin with him. The priestess was not with them this time, both as a way for me to balance and a narrative way of them to kind of wonder where she went. Especially since they learned later on that the Sahagin believe their priestesses are the most important members of their society. So they probably tried to keep her safe, or she died during the battle. They themselves do not know which it is, but I know that the priestess is actually okay. I rolled death saves for her, and she'll become a problem for them later. Anyways, they fight, they defeat the Sahagin Baron, they throw his body up onto the ground, or up onto the boat, and then a couple members of the party decide to explore the underwater cave. See, for dramatic flair, I decided to have the Baron open up an undersea cave, and the Sahagin came slipping out of it, kind of like a fast travel station for them almost, and the players wanted to go investigate that. The sorceress of the party decided that their character did not want to be a part of that little excursion, so we have the druid, the monk, and the fighter going into this undersea cavern with their caps of water breathing. Mind you, the sorcerer decided that because the druid can wild shape, that they'll hold on to a cap of water breathing themselves, so the druid was only going down there with 2 wild shapes, so they could only be down there for 2 hours tops. Of course, I love exploration, and I do love improvising when I DM, so the fact that they wanted to go away from the main quest again and explore somewhere else was another opportunity for me to try something new. But I also wanted to deter them from spending too much time here. So as they traveled up the tunnel, I made it clear to them that the Sahagin use this as a one-way speed boost. There is a bit of a water pressure current that pushes through and allows the Sahagin to swim twice as fast going one way, but not nearly as fast going the other way. As a result, it took the 3 of them an hour to trudge their way through the tunnel this way. By the end of it, the druid was out of his wild shape and was back to his elven form. Now I want to make it clear that the druid and the fighter are both new to D&D. The druid seems to not understand the concept of danger as well as the fighter does, treating it kind of like a video game or Skyrim where the world levels up with me and every challenge the DM puts in front of me is something I can defeat. Like there's absolutely no way I could ever lose a situation. As a result, he didn't have the best sense of what danger was. So when the 3 of them got to the end of the tunnel, they pop their heads out of the water and they find that there is an air bubble in this undersea cave. In this undersea cave, they find themselves face to face with a pack of sleeping Sahagin. 14 regular sized and 2 barons. In addition to this, the baron that they had fought had downed 2 of them and almost killed one of them. The monk and the fighter completely understood. They were out of their water. This was not something they wanted to mess with. They sunk their heads back underwater and started to leave. The druid decided to stay because he thinks he's going to get loot if he sticks around. So I tell him to roll stealth, and he rolls a 19, which is great. And I gave him advantage because there was a large amount of rushing water in this cavern, which is what causes the water pressure that creates the current that makes it easier to swim out. He rolls a 19, gets past the sleeping Sahagin, and ends up going down a hallway to watch as some Sahagin are preparing whale meat to eat for later. Makes another stealth check, gets past them just fine as well. Finds himself seeing two pathways. One is a massive waterfall coming down, the other is a submerged tunnel. He decides to ignore both and head back the way he came. Finally, he decides to go down the other exit from the sleeping Sahagin room and ends up in their armory, where their armor is, their weapons are, and he tells me he wants to take everything. I had already made it very clear to him that I don't do encumbrance, but I bring the encumbrance rule into play when you're being ridiculous. No, you cannot carry the entirety of the dragon's hoard. No, you cannot lift an entire building's worth of stuff just because I told you there's no encumbrance. I do the no encumbrance when you want to try and, pick up the fairy in the party because the fairy weighs like 50 pounds. That's not too heavy for an adventurer who regularly lifts heavy armor on their own body. Anyways, so I tell him he can take 3 spears and a trident. He is too weak to pick up the armor. He is just a druid with, I think, a 13 strength. And he says, okay, I want to build a barricade. And I said, a barricade from what? And he goes, oh, I want to block the exit to the room. And I said, you want to block the only exit to the room? So I make him roll stealth, or strength, not stealth. I make him roll strength. He rolls like a 6. I tell him the armor's too heavy. All the while, everyone else at the table is telling him to get out of there because the Sahagin are going to eat him if he wakes any of them up. I then tell him that he hears footsteps. In any situation, any regular player would take that as you need to hide. He decides to just stand in the middle of the room and grab a couple spears. One Sahagin comes into the room and he decides to attack. He and the Sahagin fight. The Sahagin gets him down to like 2 HP. He wild shapes into a crocodile and actually manages to win the fight with only 10 HP left on his crocodile form. So as a crocodile, he rolls stealth to leave the armory. He rolls a 1. I decide to make this one last act of mercy, and he ends up taking damage from the spears that he's trying to carry out in his crocodile form. So the critical fail of the stealth was not waking up the entirety of the army of Sahagin. It was instead damaging himself and almost knocking him out of his crocodile form. Fortunately for him, the next stealth he rolled was fine and he was able to sneak out. But if the monk had not left behind a potion of water breathing, he would have had absolutely no way of getting out of there because crocodiles can only hold their breath for a minute. And while it took an hour to get through, it takes half an hour to get back out because of the water current. Either way, there was no way of getting out of there without the mercy of a fellow player, willing to leave behind an important item like a potion of water breathing, knowing that he would need it in order to flee. I made it clear to him when the session was over that you have to be careful about the decisions you make because obvious danger needs to remain obvious. So the next time something like this happens, you will need to roll a new character because you will probably die. His response was, okay, that makes sense. So I'm hoping I got through to my new player, and as a result, I, the rest of the party had fun. They were basically making fun of him the entire time he was bumbling through the Sahagin den. Regardless, I made it clear to him after the session that I was being very merciful. That he had good rolls, but that crit fail could have been an easy way for me to just get rid of his character, and he needs to acknowledge danger the next time he sees it. He seems to have understood, but we'll find out in the next session because they're back in the town of Saltmarsh. They managed to get their prize from Gellin Prime Water. They ended up getting a belt of dwarven kind, which the fighter, who has been very chummy with the dwarves at the mine, is very happy to have obtained. He clicked it on, and it was funny. As I'm listing all these magic items, the druid, he goes, "Oh, we should get that," and the rest of the party was like, "You didn't die today. That's your prize. You don't get a say in anything we obtain from this." So it all worked out in the end, and hopefully the next session I will begin that little ghost house with the smuggling underneath. I'm going to tell my players they have like 3 weeks of downtime, and then the council's going to call on them, so they'll be able to do any shopping or ask for any special requests or make new friends, anything like that. But as always, this was an interesting glimpse. Let me know in the comments below. Do you think I did the right thing? Was I being too nice to a new player by letting his actions have no consequence? I mean, I made sure that he walked out of there obtaining no loot, so he neither gained nor lost from his actions. But that's pretty much my thoughts on it. So thank you for watching as always, and I will see you in the next video. This is the Hero of Julios, Xing out.